The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I felt so used and worthless, and I just felt like trash. Like, who does that to somebody who they say that they love? I knew, or I felt like he had changed his mind, and I just didn't want to keep sitting there feeling, at that point, stupid. I hate what happened. I'm so very sorry. I never wanted to hurt anybody.
Worthless and stupid is how she says she felt. The defendant, Latoshia Daniels, says that she never meant to hurt Pastor Brodus Perry or his wife, Tabitha. We're talking about the key takeaways from her testimony. Plus, brand new surveillance footage of Melodee Buzzard and her mother, Ashley. This is the 9-year-old California girl is still missing this morning. Also this hour, some legal wins for the woman accused of holding her stepson captive for more than 20 years. Defendant Kimberly Sullivan's attorney joins me live this hour to talk about it. And tortured and starved to death, we're talking about the case of little Kinsley Welty. This is a brand new lawsuit is filed against the Department of Child Services. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Friday morning to you. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? TGIF, and we got a great program planned for you. Grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. You know, my friends, rarely am I at a loss for words, but I don't know what to say about what I saw on the stand from Defendant Latoshia Daniels. Whew. That was some of the saddest, most pitiful testimony I've ever heard from an accused. That being said, the jury still has a homicide case on its hands where Ms. Daniels killed a man and hurt his wife. Homicide and attempted homicide are as serious as it gets. And being a sad sack on the stand isn't a mitigating factor. I thought we were going to hear more of a classic heat of passion defense where she became suddenly enraged and her emotions took over her better judgment. No. Instead, we heard extreme sadness. We'll call it the extreme sadness defense. That's not a thing. She talked about her childhood, her teenage problems, very, very sad stuff. She talked about the pastor being abusive and controlling to her in their relationship. She also talked about how she contemplated suicide. Again, all very sad and tragic. And then she said she blanked out about the shooting incident itself that took the life of Brodus Perry and injured his wife, Tabitha. This is an awful case. The cheating, the ethical non-monogamy, what a bunch of baloney that is. Call it what it is, cheating. The cheating was the root cause of the situation that turned deadly. And despite having a very rough time in life, I think that Latoshia Daniels is going to be crying in prison next. That's my opening statement on this Friday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Who are you married to?
I'm married to Debbie.
The son?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So Debbie, his son, and you are now married. How long have you been there?
Almost 2 years.
In Nevada, we've got testimony resuming today in the Love Triangle beheading trial for defendant Devin Michaels. She's a former porn star who's charged with decapitating her ex-boyfriend, Jonathan Willetti. Court's underway at noon Eastern time. We will go there when it begins. In Iowa, testimony begins at 10 a.m. in the Meadow Pipe Massacre case for defendant Luke Truesdell. This guy's accused of killing 4 people by attacking them with a metal pipe. And in Colorado, the state's case continues in the father figure murder trial for Darren Thrailkill. This guy's accused of murdering his girlfriend's 6-year-old son, Martin Osinke. Right now, let's turn to your top story this morning. What did the jury think of defendant Latoshia Daniels? This woman's accused of murdering her pastor lover, Brodus Perry, in April of 2019 and wounding his wife, Tabitha, in the same shooting event. Daniels testified that Perry's attention made her feel valued, but his refusal to tell his wife about their affair left her heartbroken. She says she felt worthless and stupid, but never intended to hurt anybody.
I hate what happened. I'm so very sorry. I never wanted to hurt anybody. I've spent most of my life helping. I never would intentionally try to hurt anybody.
Did you ever plan to kill Brodus Perry?
Never.
Did you ever intend to hurt Tabitha?
No.
Did you even realize that you had shot her?
No.
So is Latoshia Daniels a victim as well? How do you think the jury received her testimony? Let's dig in. Let's bring in our guests, psychotherapist and the CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey is with us this morning, and so is criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno. Good morning to you both. Dr. Janie, let me begin with you. Being a psychologist, what did you think of this woman when she got up there on the stand?
What I thought about her is that she appeared to be very authentic in her heartbreak and in her vulnerability and in her just getting caught up in a very vulnerable position. She was this pastor's person that he was counseling through her previous divorce. So I believe that all the things that she was saying was absolutely true, but, you know, she still committed this crime. That's what I thought.
Dr. Janie. Yeah, it's like, exactly. I think people can identify with her and feel bad for her. But then you've got the law, and when you break the law, there are consequences. And David Bruno, let me go to you on that. How do you think the jury's going to struggle with this, or maybe won't they struggle with it?
Yeah, I think the three of us are on the same page. My heart breaks for the situation. I mean, clearly she was a victim. I mean, she testified about her 2 prior marriages. She'd experienced abuse during her upbringing with her family. Her stepfather was a pastor that had abuse in the household. And she goes to the pastor for help, counseling. And that's where the kissing and the intercourse started. So yes, it breaks for that. But however, the law is going to be short on this because, you know, there's no real mental defense that gets her to insanity. The diminished capacity is not really available because of the same reason. And she didn't testify to anything dramatic happening in that kitchen to give her that defense of the passion provocation.
Right. Dave, a follow-up for you on that, please. Did you think what I was thinking when you heard she was going to get up there before she said a word? Were you thinking, oh, this is going to be a heat of passion defense where she's provoked, like you just said, in an instant with, you know, the sight of him and his wife together and the husband not telling the wife about, and she just lost her marbles in that moment and her better judgment went out the window. I was waiting for that, and then that moment, it's like it just, it went over like a lead balloon when she said, I don't remember. David, when she's saying she doesn't remember, but she's not denying that she shot them, what kind of position does that put her in legally?
Yeah, problematic, right? Because the heat of passion, the textbook heat of passion is when a spouse maybe comes in and sees the cheating, right? So the question is, what is the provocation? And it has to be an adequate provocation that a reasonable person would lose control. And that is the defense in the passion provocation. But she did not give any provocation whatsoever other than her sorrow and the fact that she was sad. And she didn't testify to anything that would have triggered that adequate provocation, falling short of the passion provocation.
Right. Good explainer there, David Bruno. You're being a professor this morning on the show. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Dr. Janie Lacey, I want to get some analysis from you, please, on one of the most heartbreaking portions of the testimony when she read that suicide note that she had written. Because for anybody that missed it, she testified that she prepared to kill herself in front of the pastor to cause him pain for causing her pain. Let's listen to that moment.
To my family, I'm sorry that I have let you down. I tried my best to be the person you all thought I was. I tried to be the person you could count on and be proud of. However, I have been depressed for a long time. I did well with coping until the past 2 years. My world changed February 24th, 2017. And the just keeps getting worse.
Dr. Janey, what are the chances that this woman truly was, in fact, suicidal at that time, but changed her mind in the moment?
You know, Julie, I believe her. It's very common when we look at these love-addicted relationships, especially when, I would say, classic gaslighting techniques were employed, right? So he had this manipulation where he systematically fed her false information. And if she was really believing that she was going to have this new life, that probably that then their intimate conversations that he was promising her, and then the confusion, the back and forth, which usually happens in these toxic dynamics, especially when one person holds the power in the relationship and they're feeding the other person what they want them to, almost like the fantasy of what they want them to fall into. So it's actually common when we see these in some of the couples and the relationships when people are coming out of these toxic relationships, especially if there's been a history of depression, history of anxiety. She's already coming out of a string of toxic relationships. So I do believe that was probably very possible. And then if it was true that he's communicating with her while she has this plan that she's employing, and that he's telling her that he loves her and things are going to be okay, it's very possible and realistic that she could have changed her mind. We see it all the time. We just don't see it leading to murder.
Sure. Dr. Janey, I want to explore this concept with you that this pastor brought out. I personally had never heard of it. Ethical non-monogamy. And apparently it's a thing. Apparently it's talked about on TikTok. Dr. Janey, I'm sure you've heard of this in your practice. Maybe people, find situations like this one that cause conflict with three individuals here like we had here that led to a fatality. I've got a video of the pastor himself talking about this, and the jury saw this video. Let's take a listen together.
Well, I am at a place now where I want to expand this ethical non-monogamy, and your opinion matters to me because we are in this relationship. But at the same time, like I said from the outset, I want to be respectful, but I also want to let you know that, your opinion matters. But at the same time, I don't want you to put me in a box, right?
Okay, Dr. Janey, this concept, ethical non-monogamy that this pastor was practicing, but not really, because we know he wasn't telling his wife about it, so I don't know where the ethics came in here. He was lying to her and betraying her. What do you think? How problematic is this?
Well, I think in the terms of how the pastor was using it, he was just using a progressive term to just really identify classic cheating. Because as we were listening in the case when she referred to that he had her read the book, The Ethical Slut, right? So when you look at that, what they're calling the ethical approach to non-monogamy, it's where one person has care and they communicate openly with all partners with full consent with everyone involved. And this was not the case, right? So there was not informing his wife, and there was not transparency, and there wasn't any open communication between the wife and the lover. There was no respect for boundaries. So from the definition of how people define ethical non-monogamy from the ethical slut, this didn't even apply to that. This was just traditional cheating, in my opinion, Julie. He was just using progressive language.
Yes, progressive language. That's a good way to put it, Dr. Janey. I remember a time where we called it an open relationship, right? I mean, you both remember open marriage, open, whatever it is. This is ethical non-monogamy. Just sounds a little slicker on the TikTok videos. We'll leave it there for now and get ready to go into this trial later today. Excellent insight from you both. Dr. Janey Lacey, thank you so much for making time with us this morning. Hope to see you again soon. David's coming with us. You do the same at home, please. Here's what's next on Opening Statements.
We know that Melodee was still with Ashley on that return trip, as close as the Colorado-Utah border on the Colorado side on October 9th.
Melodee Buzzard missing for more than 3 weeks now. And this morning, police are releasing this surveillance footage of 9-year-old Melodee with her mom, both of them wearing wigs. Why? We'll talk about it. Plus, defendant Kimberly Sullivan accused of holding her stepson captive in a home full of horrors. But recently, her team scored some legal wins. Her defense attorney joins me live this morning to talk about them.
The Court TV podcast will return.
We're doing multiple searches and that we're utilizing our partners at the FBI that have some really, great equipment, training, experienced people, all of those things. We're coming at this investigation with from every angle and with everything that we have access to.
We have not been able to locate the child as of yet.
Detectives in the ongoing search for missing at-risk child Melodee Buzzard are now sharing surveillance footage of the 9-year-old with her mom. Take a look at this. Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office releasing a portion of the video footage that was taken on October 7th in that rental car business. And you can see Ashley Buzzard and Melodee there both wearing wigs. This was right before they took that cross-country trip. Investigators also believe that Ashley swapped out wigs throughout the trip to intentionally avoid recognition during her travel. Throughout the investigation, detectives have confirmed the following: that Ashley left California with Melodee on the 7th, driving a rented white 2024 Chevy Malibu that initially had a California tag on it. Detectives believe that Ashley and Melodee traveled as far as Nebraska with a return route that included Kansas. Beginning on October 8th, the Malibu was seen with a New York license plate. Detectives believe this was a false plate deliberately switched out to avoid detection. Then on the 9th, Melodee was last seen on video surveillance between the Colorado-Utah border. So, are detectives getting closer to finding Melodee? Let's talk about it. I'm going to bring in two of the best investigators I know. Retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Both of you have been on this case since the news broke. Thank you so much for joining us with this update with the footage. So we saw the still photos for a while. Those had been circulating, and then last night there was a decision to show some video. Agent Coffindaffer, would you start us off with your thoughts this morning on the investigation?
Well, certainly when you look at this, you see the premeditation involved. This wasn't a situation that something happened and all of a sudden she decided to take this trip. Just those New York license or the New York license plate that was used. You can order them on eBay. You can order them on Amazon. It's about $30 for an old plate. And so I believe she would have premeditated this action and known she was going to want to cover her tracks, if you will. Also, those wigs, it definitely shows criminal activity afoot.
Yes, Jen. Manuel, let me go to you next, please. So seeing the video, tell us this morning what you're picking up on, any additional thoughts, seeing a little bit more information on that day that mom rented that car to take her daughter God knows where.
Well, it's like Jennifer said, and I agree with her 100%. The premeditation in this case is rock solid. This mother premeditatedly knew that she was going to take this child to an area that it was easy to get rid of. And you got to remember, Julie, this journey to this Nebraska and Utah, she had to go through a desert. She had to go through mountainous terrain, densely wooded forests. There's so many areas she could have dropped this innocent child off at. But what boggles me the most, Julie, is, again, like you and I have been saying, why isn't she arrested? This is a rock-solid case for child endangerment and a rock-solid case for child neglect. This mother has called the bluff of all law enforcement. She has stayed quiet, Julie, and she will not speak. The only way this woman's going to speak is when she's in an orange jumpsuit and she has no freedom. Then you will loosen her tongue when a judge says, you're going to be in contempt of court if you don't speak.
I couldn't agree with you more, Manuel. Thank you for that. So Melodee's grandmother, Ashley's mother, is speaking out. She did an interview with KSBY reporter Crystal Bermudez. Here's what she had to say about the 9-year-old's disappearance in those surveillance photos and possible familiar faces along Ashley's route of travel.
What were your first thoughts when you saw this image?
I was totally numb and in shock. This is just so shocking to me, and that my granddaughter is dressed in a disguise. This is just so overwhelming. It's just so really scary.
You're saying that her father's family, his people...
And my family.
And your family are along those routes.
Utah.
Utah.
Yeah, Utah. When you start getting past Utah coming back, that's when you're running into his friends. You need to tell them where the baby is. You need to tell them who's setting all these things up for you. I know you're not doing it.
According to investigators, the Malibu was driven by Melodee Buzzard and traveled through these areas. Here's the map. This is on or about October the 9th. They went through Green River, Utah, Panguitch, Utah, Northwest Arizona, Primm, Nevada, Rancho Cucamonga, California. And then when Mom came home, she came home without Melodee and then would not answer any questions as to where her daughter is. Now, based on Grandma's emotional plea, we're wondering, should Mom be the only person of interest here? As Grandma talked about, there are other relatives in the area along the way. Should Melodee's mom be the only person investigators are focusing on? Jen, what do you say?
Well, I say that the mom should be the character they're focusing on. This is her plan. This is what she decided to do with Melodee. And thankfully, there's a GPS on that 2024 and keystroke. Also, those are going to be important for when that car was turned on and off, and to show the time frames and how long possibly that car was sitting still. But in terms of her actually going to a relative or friend of this family and dropping her off, it's possible. I don't think it's probable. And it's also possible that that person would unwittingly not even know about this. I mean, let's be fair. There are so many crimes that happen that if you're not a junkie of true crime or a newsie, you're not going to know about. Do I think this is a probable scenario? I do not. I don't think she would ever get Melodee out from underneath her thumb and control.
Right, Jen, right. And you would think any of those relatives who loves the child would speak up now that this has gone, national, and that they would say, oh, come on, we have the girl. Yeah, this is so bizarre to me. All the stops, Manuel, let me ask you about that. Initially, we knew there was a trip to Nebraska. And so initially we were talking so much about that. I know you both remember the conversations. Now we've got all these other places. Why? Manuel, your best educated guess.
Well, I think she was using all these other places as a way of distracting, throwing off law enforcement. That was the purpose of the wigs, going to these different locations so you didn't know which spot she might have dropped off at. But you got to remember two things, Julie, and that is Utah and Nebraska. And these are the two main locations she was at, have an infamous problem for sex trafficking. Okay, in 2015, they had to set up a sex trafficking task force just in Nebraska to deal with their problems. Again, these two locations are ideal. And unfortunately, every day we wait, every second that goes by, the chances of us finding her alive are going to be that much more smaller. To be honest with you, if she is sex trafficked, I guarantee she'll be dead in maybe 2 years, because that's usually the life expectancy of kids like this. Unfortunately,
so
I hope I'm wrong.
Right. No, I know you do, Manuel. I know you do. Yeah, that was my initial thought. As soon as I heard that Mom took her to Nebraska, that was just what came into my mind, that, oh, my God, I hope that she wasn't sold. Jen Coffindeffer, what do you say about that potential theory?
I don't think that happened to her, but let me say why. I think this is a woman, at least according to all reports from family and from her own mother, that's very intricate. This is a woman with serious mental health issues, and I think the triggering of the financial problems she was having, she was more than $23,000 in debt, as well as the worry that law enforcement or CPS was going to come take Melodee, cause some sort of mental break, and she took off with that child. And I do agree with Manuel, though, as the minutes tick by, I think there's less and less chance we're going to find her alive.
I know, it's so awful. I hope they arrest this mom soon. Like, something's got to happen. I was in the camp of arrest her, weeks ago. I would have, not my case, but we are certainly interested. We'll keep talking about it. You both have provided such great analysis throughout the progression of this. Thank you for joining us this morning. Jennifer Coffindaffer, Manuel Gomez, thank you kindly. Friends at home, stay with us. Here's what's next on Opening Statements.
It is troubling behavior, and I don't know why he was drinking out of a toilet, but that was reported in grade school by the principal before any alleged abuse ever began. So let's put that in context, okay? The principal reported that years ago. I think the claim was that he was drinking out of a urinal. Long before any alleged abuse.
We are spotlighting Defendant Kimberly Sullivan's defense as one of her attorneys joins me live to talk about some of the legal wins in the case. Plus, 5-year-old Kinsley Welty abused and starved to death, allegedly by her own mother. Could a new lawsuit filed against DCS affect the case?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
How many other people?
Help him out.
Listen,
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on.
The Connecticut woman accused of holding her stepson captive for years is back in the spotlight this morning as her defense team is racking up some big legal wins. Kimberly Sullivan is charged with assault, kidnapping, unlawful restraint, cruelty to persons, and reckless endangerment. She has pleaded not guilty to all those charges. Her 32-year-old stepson, known only as S, weighed only 68 pounds when he was allegedly rescued from her home back in February. This after reportedly setting the house on fire so he could be saved. But late last week, a judge granted Sullivan's defense team's motion to give her access to her stepson's alias and address. The state also must share the stepson's medical records with the defense team. Here to talk about these legal wins, Kimberly Sullivan's attorney, Giannis Kolonis. Giannis, good morning to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just start with your reaction to these. You got a couple legal wins here.
We were pleased with the outcome from court last week. This is something that's kind of been ongoing for several months, this fight over the release of the medical records and whether there should be redactions or whether certain information should be shared with our client. We've been prepared to argue this for months. We filed our motion or our objection within days of the state's motion. We laid out the legal grounds. We always believed we were on firm legal ground with respect to that motion and with respect to the other motion we filed with respect to the complainant's attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And Giannis, tell me, with respect to the medical records, what exactly are you hoping this provides?
So the medical records is something we always anticipated getting, and the state was never trying to prevent us from having those records. Those records are relevant. They're relevant to his injuries. They're relevant to the claimed injuries, and they might provide some light as to some information as to what he's alleging, blood tests, other conditions that he may be suffering from. There could be a lot of information there. There could be very little information there. But the fight was never over whether we should get the medical records. The fight was over whether we should see what his new name is, his new alias, and his new identity, as well as his location.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. So for what purposes would you want his new information, new address, new identity these days?
So the issue is not necessarily that we want his address. We don't necessarily want to know where he is. No one's looking for him or anything like that. The issue is, in part of our rules of discovery, names and addresses of witnesses are provided in every case. This is standard. It's in our practice book. So what the issue here was that the state was seeking an exception to the rules. The state was seeking at first to redact the name entirely, but then ultimately just for us not to share that information with our client. And the problem we had with that is the state did not make any showing, any legal argument or any legal basis for that information to be kept from our client. And that's where we had a problem with it. If the state is going to impose barriers on the defense, put up a wall between a defense attorney and his client, and ask a defense attorney to withhold information from our client, there has to be a good legal basis. There has to be more than, well, the accuser doesn't want her to know his new name. He doesn't want her to have that power over him, or he doesn't want her to know where he is. Well, respectfully, that's not a legal argument, and we're not going to start making exceptions and withhold information from defendants because accusers are uncomfortable with it or don't like it. As far as I'm concerned, criminal court is about the rights of the accused. That's how the framers set this up. That's how the Constitution was written. It's not about the rights of accusers. I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's how I approach the work I do.
Giannis, we know that your client's out on a bond with a GPS monitor, a house arrest situation, and there are bond conditions. I would assume that would include no contact with him. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. The court actually issued a protective order the day we went to court, from day one. So there's been a protective order from day one prohibiting her from having any contact with him. She's obeyed by that order. She has no desire to change that order. She has no intention or desire to contact him. So that's a non-issue as far as we're concerned.
Thank you. I would have thought so, but just wanted to get the clarification while we have you here to be certain.
Sure.
So tell me, in terms of whether or not this case could be resolved without a trial, I know we're many months out from the last time we spoke, which was closer in time to the arrest and the charging. Has anything changed? Would your client be amenable to a resolution via some kind of plea agreement?
So, it's still premature to discuss the specifics, or I don't know if that'd be appropriate to discuss the specifics of this case. But as you know, any case can, result in some type of disposition, some type of agreement. What I could tell you right now, the state firmly believes, as best I could tell, the state firmly believes that what the accuser is saying to them is true, and they're going to proceed as if that is the case. I, on the other side, have a client who tells me she's done nothing wrong, and we've prepared a defense in accordance with that. So right now, it doesn't look like there's a resolution, but things always change. New information comes up. There's a lot of stress with a trial. There's a lot of risk associated with the trial. So is it possible that some resolution is reached? That's always possible, but as best we could tell, and as far as we're concerned, we're preparing for a trial.
Understood. And so tell me, is there a trial date yet that's been firmly set, Giannis?
No.
No.
We're just going to keep going back to court. And the way our system is in Connecticut, we don't actually use dates certain for trial, except in rare circumstances. We would obviously be pushing for some type of set trial date at some point, but it is premature at this point.
Yeah, got you. Well, please let us know when you do have a firm trial date. There's a lot of media interest in the case and tough facts. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Kimberly Sullivan is in excellent hands with you. Giannis Kolonis, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. When we come back, here's what's coming up on Opening Statements.
And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, is that nobody stepped in and said, this child needs help. What can we do to try to help this child? And the thing that you consistently see and hear in these conversations is people are concerned about their own well-being. Well, I might get in trouble if someone is aware of this.
We're being a voice for victims for little Kinsley Welty, the paternal side of her family now suing the Department of Children's Services. We'll be right back.
This is the Court TV podcast.
The abuse was only towards Kinsley?
The neglect was them all, but
the neglect,
the physical abuse was Kinsley. It wasn't about she didn't want her. She wanted to see Kinsley dead. That was her goal.
Now, as we give a voice to victims, family members of a 5-year-old child who was allegedly starved to death are suing the Indiana Department of Child Services for not doing more to help her. You might remember Kinsley Welty. Court TV has been following her case ever since she died last year. Prosecutors are alleging that she was subjected to years of abuse, including being confined in a filthy closet for most of her short life. And now, for the first time, we're seeing the condition that Kinsley was in on the day that she died. And we want to warn you, the image we're about to show you is graphic. This is a photo of Kinsley's legs taken in the hospital the day that she died. She was 5 years old and weighed only 21 pounds. Her mother, Tony McClure, her mother's boyfriend, and McClure's mother are all charged in connection with Kinsley's abuse and her death. Now, the child's biological father and grandfather have filed a civil lawsuit. The complaint accuses DCS and 10 family case managers of failing to do more to prevent Kinsley's death. Kinsley and her siblings were removed from Tony McClure multiple times, but always returned to McClure. Let's talk about it. Let's bring in our guest. Let's bring in Tom Rawlings. He's the former director of the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services. He's also an attorney. Tom, good morning to you. You've examined the lawsuit for us. Share with us your initial thoughts, please.
Well, Julie, first of all, we know this is a horrible case. Poor little Kinsley. I can't imagine the torture that this child went through. It almost makes me want to cry here on the TV. But looking at the lawsuit, as you know, we spoke a couple of years, so I guess last year about this a couple of times. And looking at the lawsuit really reinforces to me that the Department of Children's Services and others just really lost the opportunity to help this child. There were multiple reports about her from November 23 up until the day she was found deceased. And it's as if no one really cared. No one responded. They said they couldn't find the house, even though she had been in the same place for quite some time. It's a very concerning case. And it certainly highlights, how sometimes the system does not work. And we have to have a system because, unfortunately, we have people like Tony McClure and her mother and her boyfriend who, quite frankly, just appear to be evil people.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. And they've all got a criminal case pending. We're going to cover that case extensively when that goes to trial. I'm with you. Seeing that photo of her legs, it's hard to look at.
Horrible.
For a period of 5 months before her death, she died on April the 9th of 2024. Kinsley, 5 years old at the time of her death, the lawsuit alleges was abused, imprisoned, neglected, tortured, starved, and ultimately died while in the care and custody of defendants McClure, Smith, and/or Halsey at her home. Goes on to say, in part, on April the 9th, law enforcement officers discovered Kinsley in a severely malnourished and emaciated state, her bones visibly protruding, with feces on her hands and her feet, and active head lice covering her scalp. Kinsley was declared deceased that evening after being taken to Riley Hospital for Children. Ugh. Tom, how culpable do you think DCS is here in not protecting this child? Because we know this kind of treatment doesn't happen in a day.
Look, I've worked with social workers my whole life. They work in a system. It is a difficult job. I have great empathy for that work and how difficult it is. I think that in this situation, I think it's a good opportunity for Indiana to really look at its child protective system. And if you see what happened here, there was just so many missed opportunities. As you know, Kinsley had been removed a number of times and placed with her grandfather and then put back with this horrible situation with her mother. I would like to know more about why. Why wouldn't you simply leave Kinsley in a safe place? Who made the decision to put her back? And then starting in November 2023, there was call after call after call to DCS. And many of those calls were screened out or they did an expedited case closure, even though no one had ever laid eyes on Kinsley. They laid eyes on her brother at school. They had a situation apparently where another child, there was a report, a half-sibling, but they claimed they couldn't find her, and they closed the case as unsubstantiated. And I think that tells me there's a real system problem. Again, you know, I don't doubt that these caseworkers who go into this work for Indiana are good people. They try their best, but there's something wrong about the system when you can miss this type of opportunity. The entire time, this child was probably locked in a closet being starved. And yet the case the case is unsubstantiated. No one's seen the child. It's a real systemic failure.
It really is. I'm having a hard time keeping it together. I'm just going to be so honest. You know, these cases, they're tough, Tom, as you know. Child abuse cases are some of the worst, most upsetting cases you can deal with. I always say, God bless those investigators and prosecutors who can stomach looking at pieces of evidence like something that we want to show again, as upsetting as it is to look at, and that's where my tears are coming from this morning. I saw this for the first time, as we all did. That photo, it is graphic. My friends at home, this is graphic. You're going to probably find this as upsetting as I'm finding it now, but this is going to be key. We're going to show it again. This is what her legs looked like the day she died, 21 pounds. This precious 5-year-old, beautiful little angel weighed the day that she died. And we're going to have a team of prosecutors taking this to trial against mom's boyfriend, and mom's mother pretty soon. And it's very hard to stomach this kind of evidence, but sadly, this is the reality. This child wasn't protected. And now, I mean, thank goodness, family on the paternal side are trying to hold somebody accountable, but it's too late. You know, it's too late for Kinsley, for that poor child. Tom, can anything happen? Can any good changes happen with this lawsuit that can prevent something like this from happening again?
There can. Remember that whether it's the law enforcement, whether it's child protective services, whether it's our healthcare system, the only good thing that comes out of a tragedy is the opportunity for honest people to be transparent about what happened and didn't happen and how things went wrong. And if people within that system can take a hard look at themselves and be humble and say, we screwed up, we made a mistake, we did not do this right, and make efforts to improve the system. So, for example, I would be looking at this case at why were they doing this expedited closure of cases without seeing children? That seems very foolish to me.
It does, Tom. You're so right. So we're just about out of time. We have 10 seconds left. Tom Rawlings, thank you so much. As we go to break, let's look again at beautiful Kinsley Welty.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.